did
A
not.
16-year-old is set to stand trial for the murder of a 13-year-old girl, and he's being tried as an adult. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
True. Holy shit. I did not
So
expect
a new trial
this.
is set to begin on Monday, February 6th in St. Johns County, Florida, which is just south of Jacksonville. And it concerns 16-year-old Aiden Fucci, who is charged with first...
Bruh. The look on his face is like, yeah, I just killed a bitch. No, I don't care. Like, bruh.
First-degree murder for killing 13-year-old Tristyn Bailey back on May 9th, 2021. Fucci was just 14 years old at the time of the crime, and he spent time in a juvenile detention center before he was eventually moved to an adult prison. Got to give you the backstory here. So Tristyn Bailey, Aiden Fucci, they went to school together at Patriot Oaks Academy.
Okay.
Both lived in an upper middle-class neighborhood, pretty much had zero crime. But then we go to Mother's Day.
Wait a second.
Middle-class neighborhood.
This is very telling, you guys. Okay. The pictures that they take, he's trying to come off as a thug, which I don't get, because he just said you lived in an upper middle-class neighborhood. You guys are in, like, the same tax bracket, at least your families are. And you're trying to look like fucking Lil Esco. Or, who's the other little fucking gangster rapper that's out here with pistols and shit? That's white. It's not Lil Xan. I don't know. It's one of the littles. You out here looking like you trying to look like you trying to be a fucking goddamn gangster rapper. All right, bruh? And it's not what I'm saying.
Pretty much had zero crime. But then we go to Mother's Day.
Zero
May
crime,
9th,
bro.
2021, Bailey goes missing. Her mother reports her missing. The police immediately respond. They put out an alert. The community stepped in to search.
Yeah, bruh. Little white girl gone missing. Uh-oh. The fucking community mobilized like you would never see.
People put up flyers. They had huge...
At least you would never see for a young woman of the same age of color. A young woman of color of the same age. You know what I'm trying to say. They wouldn't do that shit for a black woman. Or girl. Or anybody, really. That wasn't like a fucking young, white, fucking teenage girl. Like, everybody searches for them.
Search parties to look for her, trying to find her.
The whole city, bruh. The whole city. 5 cities came to mobilize.
First hours, the first few days are the most critical. And as police investigated, they found footage on a neighbor's security camera.
Uh-oh.
And that footage is so crucial. In that footage, it purportedly shows Bailey and Fucci walking together on the sidewalk on May 9th at 1:15 a.m. They're just walking toward a wooded area of the neighborhood. Nothing really out of the ordinary as you watch it.
They're walking at 1:15 a.m. How is that not out of the ordinary? They're fucking kids. What the fuck are kids doing walking around at like 1 in the morning? That's out the ordinary.
But then it was revealed that the two were friends and that they had been hanging out several times a week. But here is where things take an extremely eerie turn.
Yeah.
Nothing is caught on that same camera until a little over 2 hours later.
Where he's walking back
when
alone.
The video seemingly shows just Fucci, not Bailey, Fucci walking back home alone.
Running back.
As you can imagine, after watching the footage, police immediately took Fucci in for questioning. And while he's in the back of the police car, this is where things take another strange turn. Fucci takes out his phone and he proceeds to take a Snapchat of himself with the caption, quote, "Hey guys, has anybody seen Tristyn lately?"
Wow.
And if that wasn't enough, he proceeds to take a video as well.
We're having fun in a cop car.
Yep. Tristyn.
What's up, guys?
Yep.
Tristyn, if you walk out the damn, it's in a cop car, cuz. She's tripping, dude.
Now, of course, just like any other gossip in any other high school that would operate, you can imagine what happened next. The Snapchat of Fucci gets shared with pretty much the whole school. After all of this, Fucci's younger cousin was questioned by the police, and when investigators asked her about any odd behavior from Fucci, she stated that he once told her that he might go to jail sometime in his life. Now, back in the squad car, Fucci's demeanor kind of changed. He spent time in the back seat, and reports are that he became upset and said, quote, "I'm going to get arrested for this BS." Now, here's something to note. Now, one of the initial stories that Fucci told investigators is that he and Tristyn were walking. She grabbed his privates. He pushed her, and she was struck in her head. And he says that he was dizzy from smoking pot earlier, and he just left her there and, quote, walked around alone for a while. Fucci also told the detective that Tristyn could have been involved with a drug dealer who's in his 20s, that she talks to him through social media, maybe trying to signify something could be there. But in the end, is this BS, like Mr. Fucci claims?
Yes.
Well, now let's get into
The shit that he was saying was
so
BS.
Investigators search his bedroom. And what do they find in his bedroom? They find blood on some pieces of his clothing. And the blood was later tested and came up positive as Bailey's blood.
Of course it did.
And then, after 16 hours of her disappearing, Bailey's body is found. She is found less than a half a mile away from Fucci's home. Horrible, horrible situation of a 13-year-old girl stabbed to death. And I'm going to get back to that in a minute. But let's go back to that surveillance footage, because investigators asked Fucci why it took him so long to go home. He said he walked around and had to clear his head, like I mentioned, but if you look closely at the surveillance footage, you can also see that he walks up to his front door, seemingly holding something in his hands. Something.
Murder weapon.
Be. Well, let's talk about the murder weapon. Well, during the investigation,
Exactly.
they searched the lake, which was right near where Bailey's body was found, and they find a folding button knife. How do we know that this is the weapon in question? Well, first of all, half the blade was missing, and the other half was found lodged in Bailey's skull. But not only that, Fucci's girlfriend reported that Fucci showed her his knife all the time and that he often carried a knife around with him. So you have video, testimonial, forensic evidence. It's already strong against Fucci, but that's not all. Fucci's friends come out, and they say something absolutely critical in an affidavit. Quote,
Damn.
within the last several weeks, the defendant advised he was going to kill someone, and the witness should expect it to happen within the month.
All right, let's see. During autopsy, it was discovered the victim had 114 stab or cutting wounds about her neck, shoulders, arms, hands, and back. At the conclusion of the autopsy, the medical examiner ruled the victim's death as a homicide due to multiple sharp force trauma injuries. Evidence collected during the autopsy matched the DNA of the defendant. Two witnesses / friends of the defendant provided sworn testimony that recovered Buck brand folding knife appeared identical to a knife that the defendant was known to carry. Both witnesses indicated the defendant stated on multiple occasions that he wanted to kill somebody by stabbing them or slitting their throat. Additionally, one of the witnesses provided sworn testimony disclosing a conversation with the defendant which occurred within the last several weeks, in which the defendant advised he was going to kill someone and the witnesses should expect it to happen within the month. The witness provided further testimony. The defendant stated if he were to kill someone, it was going to be planned. He would find a random person walking at night, drag them into the woods, and stab them. Okay, this small little scrawny motherfucker is not dragging anybody into the woods to fucking kill them. But I digress. Based on the defendant's statements, witness sworn testimony, video surveillance footage, the defendant's clothing located hidden in the defendant's bedroom with the victim's blood on them, the knife recovered from the pond with the fracture tip testing positive for the victim's blood, and the blah, blah, blah. We see it, necessary to charge him with blah. They have to explain why they're charging him, and they do a fucking very good job.
The witness goes on to say, quote, if he were to kill someone, it was going to be planned. He would find a random person walking at night, drag them into the woods, and stab them. These are the alleged...
But see, this is also how he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. It was going to be planned, and I was going to find a random person. You can... I guess you can, okay, I'm going to plan that if somebody shows up, but there's still that random chance that nobody shows up. Or the person that shows up just fucking drop kicks you and just fucking beats you into the cement because you're a fucking 13-year-old dude trying to kill somebody.
Words of Mr. Fucci. Well, ultimately, Fucci is arrested and charged with the first-degree murder of Tristyn Bailey. He was then held in a juvenile detention center in St. Johns County. And here's his first court appearance, just less than 3 weeks after the killing.
So let me tell you what you are charged with. You have been indicted by the St. Johns County Grand Jury on the charge of first-degree premeditated murder. That is a capital felony. that is normally punishable by up to death or life imprisonment. In your case, because you are not yet 18 years old, death is not a possible sentence pursuant to the Florida and United States Supreme Courts, but this charge does carry a maximum penalty of life imprisonment. Do you understand the charge against you?
Yes, sir.
All right, there is probable cause to detain you on this charge pursuant to the indictment issued by the St. Johns County Grand Jury yesterday, as well as the arrest affidavit that I have previously reviewed. The indictment in capias that followed set your bond at none. Is the state still asking that he be held without bond? Mr. Lewis?
That is correct, Judge. The state's request is no bond.
All right, Ms. Peoples, do you want to be heard on that issue?
We'll address that issue at a later date, Your Honor, with appropriate motions and witnesses.
Okay, thank you. Having reviewed the appropriate paperwork, I will preliminarily make a determination that proof is evident, presumption is great, so you will be held without bond. Mr. Fucci, do you have any questions about these proceedings today?
No, sir.
Later on, he's released from juvenile detention. He's arrested as an adult. Now he's heading to trial next week, and he's being tried as an adult for first-degree murder. And
Yes,
if found
he
guilty,
is.
he could face life in prison without the possibility of parole. Little side note here, the death penalty can't be considered because he was 14 when this killing took place. He was a juvenile. But the reason he's being tried as an adult is seemingly given the gravity of this crime. You see, he not only allegedly murdered her, but allegedly stabbed her 114 times. 114 times. 49 of the stab wounds were located on her hands, arms, legs. One meaning behind that could be possibly defensive wounds, something that you have to imagine is going to be explored by a prosecution medical examiner in an upcoming trial. And if you thought that that wasn't horrific, if you thought that this case wasn't bizarre enough, we now have to talk about Aiden Fucci's mother, Crystal Smith. So Aiden Fucci's mom is arrested on June 5th, 2021, just less than a month after the killings.
For what?
Why? Well, she's arrested for tampering with evidence. She is accused of trying to clean Aiden's bloody clothes. How do they know that she may have done that? Well, Smith had security cameras installed in her home, and she's visibly seen going into Aiden's room, grabbing the bloody jeans, and washing them. The blood on the jeans and in the sink tested positive for Bailey's blood. Now, I should tell you she was released on $25,000 bail shortly after being booked into jail, but tampering with evidence is a third-degree
Damn, that's a big-ass playroom.
felony in Florida, and Sheriff Robert Hardwick said that Crystal Smith will, quote, be held responsible for her role in this case. Now, the evidence seems to be overwhelming.
Damn, bro, mama's going down for washing a pair of jeans. I bet there was enough blood on there for her to not be able to pass it off as like, oh, he probably just hurt himself or something. Like, there was clearly enough blood there that there was an issue, a huge issue.
Against Aiden Fucci that he murdered Tristyn Bailey. So what is a trial going to look like? What could be a possible defense? What will even a jury look like? Well, to go over all this and discuss the details of the case, I'm joined by a very special guest. Criminal defense attorney Kathleen Bogenschutz is back with us here on Sidebar. Kathleen, thanks so much for taking the time.
All right, no Bogenschutz. Damn, these fucking names are killing me. Let's see. So he pleads guilty on here.
Yes, Your Honor, he's facing a possible sentence of life imprisonment. The mandatory minimum would be 40 years. So, similar to
Mandatory minimum would be 40 years. That means this fucker's coming out at 56.
after trial, the
And I'll be dead, probably.
of exposure is 40 to life. He will be entitled to a review hearing after 25 years of serving any prison sentence, Your Honor.
Ms. Peoples, have you had sufficient time to talk with your client about this decision?
Yes, Your Honor.
In addition, are his parents aware of this disposition, not the disposition, but the proposed plea?
Both parents, yes, Your Honor.
And they've had an opportunity to consult with you as well as Mr. Fucci?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are there any other matters we need to address at this time before I place Mr. Fucci in the room?
No, sir.
All right, Mr. Fucci, if you could step over and speak into that, if you could adjust that microphone. Sir, if you'll raise your right hand, you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth. How far did you go in school?
To 8th grade?
Are you able to read, write, speak, and understand the English language?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you under the influence of any medication, drugs, or alcohol right now?
Yes, sir, my medication, but
What type of medication are you taking?
Remedy's, lithium, and Suprexa.
Is that medication prescribed by a physician?
Yes, sir.
And does that medication assist you in your ability to understand what's happening and going on around you?
Yes, sir.
Have you taken that medication today as prescribed by your physician?
Last night, sir.
Last night, is that when you were scheduled to take it?
Yes, sir.
All right. And is it in any way, shape, or form affecting your ability to understand what's going on here this morning?
No, Your Honor.
Do you feel clear-headed and clear-minded about what's going on here today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Wow, so yeah, you can't even say, well, because the drugs that I was on from the prescription, I couldn't understand my trial, which I didn't even think would be a defense, but I guess everything's covered.
Have you ever been diagnosed with a mental health condition that could affect your ability to understand and comprehend what's going on today?
No, I don't believe so.
Your attorney has informed me that you'd like to enter a plea of guilty to the charge of first-degree murder. That is a sentence that is a crime which is punishable by up to life in prison. The minimum sentence that the court could impose would be 40 years in prison. You just heard the state outline that range. Do you understand the range of possible penalties that you're facing if you enter this?
40 years to life,
Yes,
at least 40.
You understand that the minimum sentence that this court could impose for you would be 40 years in prison. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
The court could impose all the way up to life in prison. Do you understand that as well?
I do, Your Honor.
And the way that this works is if the court were to sentence you to 40 years up to life, it would also be eligible for a review sentence of that sentence in 25 years. At that point, another body would then come back and review.
Could you imagine, like, this judge is probably in his, like, 50s, right? You're handing down 40-year sentences to guys who haven't even been old enough to drink yet. Right, like this dude doesn't even know what 10 years look. 10 years is so. I remember high school used to be so long to me when I was 18, like what 4, 8, 12, 16, 24. Like that's barely 4 times. Like 4 times you're 16. You're a sophomore, right? Like that's a quarter of your life when you're a sophomore. High school is 4 years, is a quarter of your life. So fucking 40? You have to fucking comprehend 40 years. This kid doesn't even know what he's in. After the first, second, or third year, then he's gonna say, oh, I'm here for the rest of my life. Like, I'm going to die here.
View what we're doing here today, and they would look at that sentence and determine whether or not they should change that sentence. However, that's no guarantee as to what they're going to do. That's just something in the statute that requires another body to review this court sentence in 25 years. Do you understand that as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Has anyone promised you any particular sentence that I might impose if you do this?
No, sir.
No one's said, hey, if you enter this plea today, the judge might, go lighter on you or anything like that? No one's promised you anything like that, have they?
No, sir.
You understand, again, I could give you 40 years up to life in prison.
Yes, I do.
All right. You understand that today, we're here for jury selection. So we actually have members of St. Johns County who have reported to the courthouse today downstairs. They're actually waiting for us right now, and we were going to begin to select a jury to conduct a trial for you. You understand that you have the right to that jury trial?
Yes, sir, I do.
Your attorney had filed a motion, and we had had a hearing a few weeks ago, I guess, where she had, the state had requested a 6-person jury, and your attorney requested a 12-person jury. Do you recall that hearing that we had on that?
Yes, sir.
And you You also understand that right now your attorney has filed a motion to an appellate court, which is kind of a higher court above this court. And their responsibility is to review all of the decisions that go on here. And right now she's filed that appeal as to whether or not you were entitled to a 6-person or a 12-person jury. You familiar with all that?
Yes, Sean.
Did you and she discuss the fact that by entering this plea today, you're kind of taking away that issue? In other words, there's not going to be an appeal anymore. Do you understand?
Yeah, there's no appeal. He understands. He's guilty.
That?
Yes, sir, I understand.
Once you enter this plea today, that's going to go away. You understand that as well?
Yes, sir.
Is anyone forcing you or threatening you in any way to get you to do this?
No, sir.
Has anyone promised you anything in exchange for your plea?
No, sir.
I have a document here, it's called a plea form. It has the state of Florida versus your name and our case number. On the second page of this document, above the word defendant is a signature. Can you see that signature I'm pointing to? You
Yes,
have a
sir.
copy of it in front of you as well, is that right? Is that your signature?
Yes, sir.
And by signing this document, you're indicating to me that you've read this document.
Yes, sir, I read it.
In addition to reading it, did you discuss it and talk about everything that's on it with your attorney?
I did.
Did she answer any and all questions about everything that's contained on this document?
Yes, sir.
There's a number of rights that you're giving up. I've already talked about them a little bit, but I want to talk about them again with you, okay? You understand again that you have the right to a jury trial. During that trial, you're entitled to be represented by an attorney. You've got attorneys who are appointed to represent you. They would have been with you throughout that trial. You have the right to compel witnesses to testify on your behalf. You could have testified during that trial if you wished, or you could have remained silent throughout that trial. You could have required the state of Florida to prove this charge beyond a reasonable doubt. You could have presented evidence during that trial. You could have cross-examined any witnesses that the state might have called against you. And you also could have appealed your conviction and sentenced to a higher court. You understand, once I accept your plea today, there will not be a trial. We'll pass this matter off for sentencing, and you'll be giving up all of those rights that I just described.
I do, Your Honor.
Another matter that I want to address with you is another motion that we had previously discussed a couple of months ago, I believe, which was your attorney had filed a motion was called a change of venue. In other words, she wanted to have this trial conducted in a different county instead of St. Johns County, as she was concerned about whether or not we would be able to impanel a fair and impartial jury. And if you recall, I ruled on that and I denied that motion. However, I stated that I would reconsider that if, after we had attempted to select a jury here in St. Johns County, if the court then determined that we could not find a fair and impartial jury for you, that we would move this to a different county. You understand that, again, once you enter this plea, that issue is not something that would be appealable anymore.
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand that now, that we're going to proceed here today with this plea, and so you'll be giving up that appellate right as well.
Yes, sir.
Have you had sufficient time to talk about this decision with your attorneys?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you also get a chance to discuss it with your parents?
Yes, sir.
Have you also had sufficient time to talk with your attorneys about your case itself and any possible defenses that you might have raised to this charge?
Yes, sir.
I know that you were housed up in Duval County. Did that in any way preclude your ability to speak with your attorneys? Have your attorneys been able to meet with you and have conversations with you about your case?
They did.
Did you get to go over the evidence that the state has and that they've supplied in discovery? Have you discussed all that evidence with your attorneys as well?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you need any time at all, any more
All
time
right.
at all to speak with your attorneys before I accept your plea today?
No, sir.
Are you satisfied with your attorney's representation of you?
Yes, sir.
Did your attorneys explain to you that if you were not a U.S. citizen entering this plea, could have subjected you to being deported from the United States?
Yes, sir.
Damn. Homie, his whole life is about to be spent behind bars. He is 16 now. the only thing that he will know is prison. He will eat, he will sleep, he will shit, shower, shave. He will grow up, grow old. He'll get his fucking neck pains and his back aches. He'll learn his fucking kinks. He'll learn what he really likes in the bedroom. All behind bars. And you know what? Good fucking riddance. Alright, we're done with this.